What is up, Chompt Down crew? My name's Ben, and today we are here to talk about Pete's Dragon. It's been a while since I've gotten a solid review out. I haven't got my Suicide Squad one done because I don't want a petition started on my channel yet without getting a real formulated opinion on that yet. It's coming though, and yeah, green hair, but mostly I haven't put a video out because there's a new cat in my house, it's messing with my eyes, and my dragon's not exactly big enough to eat her yet. I mean, I love cats and all, but when they start getting in the way of my reviews, I gotta get them out of here, you know? Someday. But the newest live-action Disney remake of one of their older films is Pete's Dragon, a story about a little boy who gets lost in the woods and is raised by a big green furry dragon. And a lot of people are ragging on this dragon for having fur instead of scales, but one of the most iconic lovable dragons of all time had fur, so I don't really get the hate on furry dragons. I'm all about the furry dragons. Not those kind of furry dragons. You know what I mean. But Pete's Dragon was a pretty fun remake because, well, there's so many remakes all the time that are done for no reason. I didn't even end up seeing Tarzan because why bother remake a movie that came out so recently that is still so good and holds up so well? But the original Pete's Dragon is practically unwatchable at this point. It's over the top, there's really bad music for no reason, and the animation is just really bad. But in this new remake, the animation is fantastic. It's brand new, revamped, and it fits right in the modern era. I wouldn't say that the animation was as good in this as it was in Jungle Book, because Jungle Book did real animals the whole time and this was just one imaginary animal. And the very few real CGI animals that were in this did not look very good. So I think it's perfectly reasonable for Disney to remake a movie like this. And it was a pretty fun time, but I gotta say, if you haven't seen it yet and you're thinking of bringing your kids, if your kids are kind of touchy and get emotional, it's just, they really play up all the sad parts in this movie. It starts off with a sad scene and it ends with a scene that makes you want to tear up inside. There's a few moments of levity, but there's no real moment like from the original where the dragon's going around messing with things and the kid's getting blamed and a real comedy scene. There's nothing really like that. In fact, at one point when Elliot the dragon and Pete have to split up, the kid next to me started crying because it was so sad. And for the rest of the movie, anytime something remotely sad happened, he was just on a trigger crying and just being like, is Elliot gonna come back? Is he leaving forever? What is going on, Dad? Why would they do this to me? It was terribly sad. But if your kids aren't really that emotional, or you're an adult that enjoys like over-the-top happy movies, you'll really like Pete's Dragon. I'm kind of a little biased because I really love dragon movies. I love any story about a little kid and his dragon. It's really nostalgic for me. It's always been one of my favorite types of stories. And honestly, Elliot looked fantastic in this film, like seriously. And Elliot definitely kind of looks like a dog. But I feel like all Disney movies really make their animals dog-like. Animation for some of the scenes in this movie were absolutely beautiful. And even though a lot of the times it seemed like they were just adding in parts of him alone because they were so focused on the other parts of the story, which we'll get into in a second, these extra parts seemed kind of added on, and you could really take them or leave them, but any part with Elliot and Pete was fantastic. I feel like the young actor that played Pete watched a little too much Walking Dead before he went to filming for this movie, because he goes to the school of acting that Norman Reedus goes to an awful lot, and granted, people tend to like that, but just the squinty eyes and the hair in the face and just deep and edgy. But I really bought a lot of the scenes between him and his dragon. Now, the climax of this movie wasn't really as fulfilling as I wish it was because, well, the driving plots to this movie weren't very strong. A lot of the characters were just simple, flat characters, except for Bryce Dallas Howard, which most of the time she was just like being all wondrous, all wide-eyed, and just like, oh, it's so magical. Her uncle or grandfather or whatever he was, the old fella who everyone thought was crazy, was pretty fantastic for the most part, but he never really went over the top. But the guy in the original who went over the top was just a drunken fool, so. And since he narrated the story, it kind of took some of the focus away from who was really the main character of the story. But the driving issues to the plot were just really weak, because the characters were so weak. Really, it came down to, is this small town gonna be able to capture and kill this dragon properly? Like a really small town with untrained anyone? Just random hunters? And then who was Pete gonna end up living with? Oh, surely not this lady that reminds us perfectly of his mother. Definitely not. But Everything wraps up really nicely. I thought the story was really fun for the most part, except for the fact that it gets really boring about halfway through. It really does kind of hit a crawl. And it might seem that I'm ragging on this movie a little extra, but I don't really mean to, because it was a really fun time. I did really enjoy myself, even though I'm a little biased, because dragons are just the coolest mythical animal. So like I said, if you like seeing your kids cry and you like dragons, I suggest going to see Pete's Dragon in theaters right now. I'm gonna give this movie a 7 out of 10. It would have been an 8 out of 10 if it didn't make everyone in my theater cry. Thank you for watching, and if you want more Chomp Down reviews, make sure you hit this big red button, because who doesn't want to hit the red button? And check out more Chomp Down reviews on my channel. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll chomp you later, and I will see you at my Suicide Squad review. Later.